We got Gregory Peccary from Texas, who solved mysteries that are exploited and not commonly accepted. Not sure what that means, but I'm sure we'll find out. Hi, Gregory. How are you?
Kelley, hello.
Hey, what's up?
Hello. Hey, and John, give
Hello.
my best to Lisa.
I always will, for everyone.
We see
Peace be upon you.
the same old stories crop up again and again and again, many of which have been thoroughly explored and with satisfactory answers, but yet people continue to get airtime and write books about them. And we in many cases, we know what happened there, but yet they're still exploited for commercial value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good example would be the Bermuda Triangle. I think would be a good example.
Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah,
there's another one that we've totally debunked.
Right.
For those that don't know, we did an environmental DNA study of Loch Ness, and there's no monster there. But they did find eels that they didn't know were there. So that was cool.
That is cool.
Well, no kidding. Well, the prototypical example is Roswell. Roswell is the most thoroughly investigated and most thoroughly explained of any of those kinds of events. Roswell got practically, after the initial furor died off in a few weeks, Roswell got no press whatsoever until Close Encounters came out. And then suddenly there were 3 entirely different stories about what happened at Roswell. In the meantime, many made-up things came up. The nurse who was at the naval base or the Air Force base where the aliens were taken who disappeared, none of that ever happened. People just make shit up to sell books, you know?
It is a good way of selling books, though.
People
believe anything. They'll believe absolutely. And wasn't it around that time that suddenly across the US and the South America as well, that there were sightings of flying discs that all happened to look like the one that was supposedly collected at Roswell, and so they'd seen these leaked pictures, and suddenly, oh, that's the one that I saw this one time, and I've been taken up in that one time. It's fascinating how one event can spur on all these other incidences of people experiencing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to say anything, but then somebody. Okay, the incident in was it Zaire, Africa, the one where the school children saw the UFO land, and some of them had conversations with the alien and yada yada. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, I know about that one.
It's like, I think. I'm sorry, I should have had my facts together a little better, but that is touted by many ufologists as great evidence. Well, what they don't tell you, and supposedly these were school children who wouldn't have known any better, they wouldn't have known about aliens or spaceships or anything like that. Well, a couple of days before, there was a celestial event. There was a massive sky display. I can't remember if it was a comet. Anyway, it was all over the newspapers for several days and on the press. Everybody was looking at the sky. Everybody was thinking about things landing here. So when they went to do the interviews quite some time later, they interviewed the children in front of each other, which you don't do. Every child got to hear the other child's story, which you simply don't. That's not the way you investigate something.
Right.
But yet this incident is touted as some of the best proof that, yes, these kids really saw something. And by the way, when I was in 4th grade, you'll love this. When I was in 4th grade in elementary school, small town in Texas, there was a big brush pile that had been pushed up far below the playground. And I started the rumor that there was an alien spaceship behind that brush pile. And those aliens were interacting with us. Within 1 week, I had half the class seeing those aliens.
Of course, yeah.
Gregory, you should be ashamed of yourself.
I was fucking 10 years old. Okay, people.
No, you're good.
You set that suggestion, right? And that's part of it. But the other part of it is that people want there to be aliens behind that brush pile. So, and that's the thing, even though there's no evidence for it, they want it to be real. And I think that's why, we're experiencing the phenomena that you're talking about here with things that we've already debunked. We know that they're not true anymore, but people still eat it up. It still generates a ton of money. So, and it's because people want the UFOs to be real. People want Bigfoot to be real. People want Loch Ness the Nessie to be real, right? And I think that's the big problem, is that if you're gonna, we're basing our some of our commercial wants on fairy tales, basically, when you think about it.
They still sell Ouija boards because people think that, oh, I can talk to the dead. And they make a ton of money from these things, and it's all power of suggestion.
Yeah.
Kelley, I actually did one in October last year, just as an aside, which I'll get into in a second. Carry on, Gregory. I'm sorry, I'm very rude.
Happy 65.
Thanks, Greg.
No, me too. It's the delay. Kelley, I'm 66. So you and I are of a generation. We grew up on Outer Limits and Star Trek and Twilight Zone. We, of course, and reading Isaac Asimov and Ray Bradbury and Robert Heinlein. Of course, we want there to be aliens. Wanting something to be true is a poor starting point to perceive the truth.
That is true. Listen, I'm only a few years younger than you both, and I want aliens to be true. I'd love it if they were true. Let's say 5 years. I'm 5 years younger than you.
This segues into something that's going to go on later on in the week, and I don't know if I should mention it, but we're doing the ACA 24-hour fundraiser later in the week, and I'm going to show something for that in a bit. But Richard Gilliver and I are going to do a segment about how our generation was sort of like seduced by rock lyrics into like new age thinking. And I think because, you mentioned that, people wanting it and the power of suggestion. And here was all these young kids like listening to this Age of Aquarius stuff. And it was like something we wanted to have happen. So we believe. So we kind of like I said, a whole generation got seduced into woo by rock and roll.
And it will continue because people will want to make money from things. So there'll always be someone who starts saying, "Oh, such and such is going to happen over there. You need this to interact with it, or to understand it." People will always be making money from this kind of thing.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time watching and mocking Coast to Coast AM on YouTube. There is no hypothesis so outrageous that some people won't buy a book about it. Hollow Earth, Crater Earth, Atlantis, Lemuria, you name it, you make it up, people will buy it. There is no premise that you can present that some people won't accept.
Right.
That's disturbing to me.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I was saying earlier, I got pulled into doing a Ouija board. The folks that asked me to do it, friends of mine, know that very well that I'm a non-believer. I am a skeptic sometimes, and they said you should come along. And I witnessed it all unfolding. They wanted things to happen so badly that the suggestion of it happening made the board do what they wanted it to do. Ridiculous names were being spelled out because someone had a name in their head and said, "Oh, it's going to spell this name." Oh, and lo and behold, it carried on and spelled the name that they just said previously. It baffles me that these things continue and people can keep making money. I feel like I'm in the wrong game sometimes. I should probably come up with my own wacky invention that will help you, I don't know, listen to dead people telling you stories from years ago. I'm gonna maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do it. It's just, it baffles me. It really does.
So many ways to debunk. The Ouija board, especially easy. Blindfold the participants and see what it's
right. Yeah, and have an adjudicator.
And by the way, if we can communicate with dead people, why does 35% of murders go unsolved? Wouldn't you want to tell somebody who murdered you if you could communicate from the grave?
And that's kind of like how I stepped into my deconstruction, because I was never religious, but I was a spiritualist, and I believed in the dead and talking to the dead and listening to the dead. And that, like, part of my journey was I wanted to learn how to do that so that I could help out with things like that and, help solve unsolved things. And that's, it all became a load of BS because it's just all made up nonsense. And the reason I could hear dead people when I was younger was because of childhood trauma. So that says a lot, doesn't it? So yeah, I get it. It's ridiculous.
Was it, John, was it trauma or was it just suggestion?
No, it was trauma.
Was it?
I had an abusive mother.
It's cool. I get childhood trauma, believe me. So I won't go into detail, but
no, you're good.
I'm sorry, Gregory, I cut you off. What were you saying?
When your dead grandmother comes to you in a dream and tells you where the family fortune is hidden, behind the wall in the basement,
right,
then we might have a basis for investigation.
That did happen to me.
Never been solved from beyond the fucking grave.
Right. Well, my dead grandmother did come to me in a dream one time, but before I stepped away from that side of belief, and she did give me a message, but it was a very nonsense message that anybody could have come up with. It was just that she was proud of my mother. That's what she came to me and said. Anybody would say that, but at the time I was dead set on telling my mum, or mom, sorry, because I'm on this side of the board, that my gran had visited me and her mum had visited me, and my gift is starting to come out now, and I can pass on this message. Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely so silly.
And the sad part of that is your mother would have believed it, right?
Oh, she absolutely did. Yeah.
That's and I'm nothing against your mother, but it's just so sad that somebody is so indoctrinated into a false belief like that,
I spent a large portion of my childhood terrified of the dark because my mother had convinced me that dead people were in my room waiting to talk to me. That's terrifying.
Wow.
Yeah. Gregory was worried about aliens.
I'll let you go. If you spend any time on, I hesitate to use the word crazy, let's say questionable. If you spend any time on questionable channels like Coast to Coast or Mud Fossil University or so on, try to be respectful and introduce a tiny splinter of doubt. Try to bring in a little science. Gina Maria Colvin is all about stars are living entities and they change color. Well, I got a comment on her post that said, well, stars change color because that light is moving through atmospheric distortion in both density and temperature and so on, and she left it up. So I got a tiny, tiny little bit of science on a bullshit channel. So I encourage everyone to do what little science you can for the anti-science community.
Nice. That's a great message right there. That's great.
That'll do it.
Thank you so much.
But you can teach them a little bit.
Right. Hopefully you can anyway.
Hey, John, does Lisa let you pet her?
No, you can't interact with Lisa. You just have to believe that she's there, and she will bestow leaves upon you. That's all it is. You can never touch Lisa the rainbow giraffe. There's all you have to do is just trust that she is real, and that's enough. Where have I heard that before?
With the flying spaghetti monster.
She ate this flying spaghetti monster by accident one time. But okay. Well, she's a giraffe. She likes to eat. But she did use the nutrients from the flying spaghetti monster and then pooped the universe into existence. So
and she's tall, so she could catch him as he was flying by, right?
It all makes perfect sense to me.
It does. It makes perfect sense to me.
Can I give you one last thing you'll really like?
Please do.
You remember the movie Gladiator? Do you remember
yes.
when what's his name? The guy who died, the slaveholder, gladiator trainer, says to the animal seller, "You sold me queer giraffes." Do you remember that line?
No, but I like it.
He bought 2 giraffes and they wouldn't reproduce. He says, "You sold me queer giraffes." It turns out that giraffes have an incredibly high incidence of homosexual relationship.
Good.
Who knew?
Good. That's awesome.
Now, how did you know that? Going back to earlier, the opening. Why do we know these weird things about these weird sexual things about animals?
That's a story for another day.
Okay. Fair enough.
Well, thanks, Gregory.